Career advancement for underrepresented groups is a social justice issue. Being promoted at work enables hiring power and influence. This is the antidote to unconscious bias and has the ability to transform who gets opportunity. Being promoted at work enables economic empowerment, money to support candidates that care about issues facing diverse communities, money to lobby to ensure that systems change that negatively impact underrepresented communities. Being promoted at work transforms the family structure. It enables families to accumulate wealth, empower future generations, and change their socioeconomic status. Being promoted at work can break cycles of poverty. I know that this is true because being promoted at work did this for me. Most of my life, I've lived in two worlds. But one of the most meaningful of these experiences was traveling each day from a low-income neighborhood in Brooklyn to the immense wealth of the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Daily, for about 3.5 hours, I left the forgottens, the ones who were assumed to have lacked potential, the ones considered to be future criminals or dependents on government subsidies. And I was greeted by marble staircases, Persian rugs, brand new Mac computers, doormen. Each day, I entered a world where possibilities seemed endless, where interrupting was praised for being a good participant and labeled inquisitive, rather than being penalized for being dysfunctional or considered being a disturbance. Where the only question about college was which one. My inquisitive classmates weren't always sheepish about telling me about how they felt about my world back home. I feel like most of the people that live in low-income communities are abusing government systems. It's not fair that everyone is using welfare. Isn't your neighborhood filled with gang violence and shootings? I was regularly stunned that their lack of understanding about the people from my world at home didn't reflect the people that I knew. And also that they didn't understand that the people that they were talking about were just like me. I was one of them. I too came from a low-income background. And my young-looking mother didn't look young because of Botox. She was a fourth-generation teenage mother who had gotten pregnant with me at 16. And that my father wasn't showing up to father-daughter square dances, not because he was out late working in his hedge fund, but because he didn't exist, at least not in my life. In fact, we had never even met. The people that my classmates were making harsh judgments about, and sometimes it felt the world was making harsh judgments about, were just like me. The difference was, I was there. There on Fifth Avenue, studying Latin, having PhDs for English teachers, learning how to make websites, having every AP class at my disposal, playing badminton and golf. And the resources and opportunities and exposure that I got didn't end with high school. I continued to grow and have more access to opportunities. And ultimately, I learned how to play the game of how to make it in corporate America. This enabled me to get promoted, to see opportunities, to move further in my career and have raises. And at each level, as I was growing, the number of people in the room that looked like me decreased. The people from my world at home, and even the people that looked like me that were sprinkled throughout my company, they weren't achieving growth in their careers. They weren't less talented, less capable, less intelligent. So why weren't they in the room with me? Access. Access to resources. Access to opportunities. Access to the unwritten rules that do exist about how to make it in corporate America. Yes, there are some that have shattered glass ceilings. The Ursula Burnses, the Kenneth Chenaults, the Rosalind Brewers. The challenge is there just aren't enough. So how do we combat this social justice issue? How do we create workplaces that adequately have leadership that reflects the entire working population? How do we enable and empower more women, people of color, and LGBTs to enter the C-suite? By including the ones who are currently there, by investing in us, by giving us access to resources that reflect our specific needs. So there are 4 things that businesses and organizations that work with talent can do to embrace this. The first thing is understanding that self-discovery leads to self-actualization. So this is a key foundational concept of coaching. Have you ever been asked to do something that you really don't want to do? How motivated are you to do it? Chances are, even if you're indifferent about it, your motivation is pretty low. Now think about the flip side. When you've spent your day preparing to do a favorite activity, something that you selected for yourself that you really want to do, your motivation is much likely much higher. Too frequently, the world tells middle and upper class people, follow your passion, but tells lower income and black and brown people, just get a job. What's the impact on their ability to be successful when they haven't had the same opportunity to pursue their passions, figure out what motivates them, and reflects their values and priorities? Knowing this, businesses must make sure that their diverse talent, once in the door, has the ability to discover if they're in the right seats. And if they're not, figure out programs to get them there. The second principle is reinforcing value and worthiness. Diverse talent deserve a seat at the table. We say this, but what does this mean? Imagine that every day of your life, you've been told your voice matters less, your ideas aren't as good, you're not as capable and deserving. Imagine that that was the assumption about you every time you walked into a room, every time you sat down for a business interview, every time you asked your boss for a raise. Well, most women, LGBT, and people of color don't have to imagine this because this is the case. And when the world repeatedly tells you that you should doubt yourself, you might start to just do that. This has a huge impact on one's career. You might speak up less in meetings, if at all. You might say, I don't know if I'm ready for that, when it's time to pursue a new opportunity or a big chance comes your way. You might discount yourself over and over again in salary negotiations. So what can businesses do about this? Create systems and practices that encourage the full participation of everyone, knowing that some people were told it's okay to be a disruptant, but that others of us have been socialized to be quiet and not be a disturbance. Businesses can create safe spaces for people to talk with those who represent and reflect them. They can ensure that their compensation structure adequately reflects gender and race equity. They can give their diverse talent stretch assignments and make sure that they have every opportunity to grow and that professional development isn't just reserved for the rising stars. The third principle is understanding that resilience is key to success in isolated spaces. Businesses have to create programs that help employees, diverse talent, develop their resilience. Throughout my career, I would often hear that Black people make everything about race, and that women make everything about gender, and that our lens is too narrow. I'd argue that it's actually much wider, and we have more to think about at work. As a Black woman at work, I always had to consider, Do I need to straighten my hair before I go to an interview? Will I be perceived as unprofessional or making some sort of political statement? And when I wear my hair natural at work, am I gonna be spending the whole day fielding questions about how does it do that? And can I touch it? Every day, people of color are spending time overthinking things that they shouldn't have to when they should be focused on building the company's bottom lines. So knowing this, businesses need to create programs that develop resilience, offer coaching to your diverse talent, give them opportunities to see leadership that reflects us and our experiences, give us safe spaces to talk about what we're going through. And the fourth principle is redefining executive presence. So typically, when we think about executive presence, we're thinking about the competencies, the skills, the traits that a potential leader must have. Businesses need to be critical about the lens that they're viewing when they come to think about executive presence. Are we truly focusing on competencies and skills, or are we identifying future leaders through a different lens? Should future leaders dress a certain type of way, speak in a certain type of manner, only have a certain type of education, only play certain types of music or certain types of sports? When we're identifying potential leaders, are we only using the behaviors that we're used to seeing exhibited by older white men? Let's be honest about that and change that. Businesses need to ensure that executive presence is focused on business acumen, and that is the lens at which we're viewing to identify potential leaders. And of course, businesses need to develop the business acumen of their diverse talent. When Rosalind Brewer stepped down from her role at Sam's Club and Ursula Burns stepped down from her role at Xerox, we lost a great deal of representation, for instance, of Black women CEOs at Fortune 500 companies. Sometimes it feels like we're taking huge steps back and not making any progress at all. But we are progressing. There are more pipeline organizations now than ever that are focused on preparing diverse talent for the workforce. We can't argue that diversity in the C-suite is a pipeline problem anymore, because it's not. We are here. We are out here, we are prepared, and we are deserving. So when we get in the door, we need to be promoted too. This isn't anymore about making this a conversation about the business case of diversity. This is about social justice. Thank you.